everybody. Christine here, CEO of Kndrd, with another weekly episode of the Co-Living Code Show, where I bring on operators, investors, real estate developers, anybody that has to do with co-living onto the show each week, every Wednesday. And today I have Yann from the Embassies of Good Living. And what's fun is we recorded this a couple weeks back, but as this episode airs today, I'm actually sharing the stage with him. We are hosting a fireside chat at the Tech conference, which is a kind of attached to the big, huge slush tech conference that's in Helsinki, Finland this week. So we are out there on stage together to speak again, but definitely wanted to get him on the show also and timed it perfectly. So let me tell you a little bit about Yann, and then we'll go straight into the episode. I just love what he's doing, especially for the 16 plus demographic. So he is the founder of the Embassies of Good Living, a global co-living concept that changes the way we perceive and experience later life. It will manifest as a global network of premium residences for the 60 and older demographic, where the quality of life will be paramount. Formerly, Yann was head of design at Deutsche Telekom, and he believes it's time to make people look forward to tomorrow. And after working in marketing and customer experience design for more than 15 years for organizations big and small, he gathered the smartest and brightest people, and they founded the Embassies of Good Living in Zurich back in 2018. And we get into which cities they're going to be launching in, when they're going to launch here on this week's episode. So enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Co-Living Code Show, where we bring on experts from around the world in the world of co-living, whether they're operators, developers, investors, users of co-living. And so today we have Yann on, and I am so excited because he's actually the founder of the Embassies of Good Living. And I know that in a few weeks, we're actually going to be kind of leading a co-living talk at a conference in Finland. So I reached out and I go, hey, Yann, I really want to have you on because he is specifically targeting the 60 plus demographic for co-living. And this is really a missing need. It's the question I get asked the most is why isn't there co-living for, the older population, active adults, senior citizens? And I'm really excited. I'd read a bunch of interviews you had already done online and just how you view that population and how you can build such an incredible, living for them is exciting. And I know everybody's going to love hearing from you. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start let's back up all the way to when you first had the idea.
Oh, that's probably already quite some years ago. I was a sort of a grandparents' kid, and I think as most of us sort of saw our grandparents at a certain stage in life moving towards, let's say, a senior living facility, that was sort of a rather sad moment in my life. As much as possible, an integral part of their lives. But them going into this place, which I totally disgusted. I hated the place. I just didn't want it to go there and didn't want them to go there either. So I think in many ways and forms, the needle got stuck in my brain at a very early age. And about probably 3 or 4 years ago, I was suffering from a hernia, lying on my back for quite some time. And then I thought to myself, well, am I really continuing to not pursuing what I'm actually about to pursue and wanted to pursue all my life? So I made the call in many ways to sort of walk the talk, and started researching. I've visited probably more than 100 senior living homes in different cities, different countries, and came back with a rather devastating view of the world in terms of, let's say, how senior living is perceived, regarded, treated, and in many ways executed. Came to the conclusion that I wanted to change that.
And where are you from originally?
Sorry. So I grew up at the border between Germany and Holland, and I'm half German, half Dutch, but we founded the company in Zurich in Switzerland.
Nice. And most of these senior living homes you were visiting there in Europe, obviously, right? Did you visit all in Europe?
Yeah, I visited one outside in Japan. I visited one in the States, but let's say the most thorough research we've done definitely in Europe. That's also where we start with the embassies now.
And then with the embassies, so I know it's kind of threefold if you want to walk through the three different layers of what you guys are building out.
Yeah, sure. So in a way, we've got one part which is sort of a, let's say, public facing exposure, which is a food and beverage offering. On top sits a community hub, which we call, let's say, community as a service. On top of that, there's a living part, and the living part is really focusing on people 60 and upwards. It's a 100% residential play, and what we try to make sure that we take up the two biggest fears people have in life towards the last quarter of their life, which is being alone. And that's sort of the biggest fear, and that outperforms all other fears out there. And second biggest fear is being a burden to your peers, to your family and friends, to your partner. I think we've got a smart way of going about those two.
No, and then I think it was actually your interview. I knew that loneliness kills more people than cigarettes, but I think you had said it's actually cigarettes and alcohol combined.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh, that is so sad. Okay, so the loneliness. So what are some ways you guys are working on combating that within the community?
Yeah, so let's say the most vital part is offering the opportunity to engage without forcing community onto people. I think when you talk about let's say being in your 80s and your 90s, you want to be in charge and being in control of that. Let's say that cursor to, yes, I want community. No, I want privacy. Now I want community. Now I want privacy. I think it's crucial in life that no matter what, we'll be able to control that cursor. And we definitely don't want to build a world where it's bingo night on Tuesday and everybody needs to join and participate. That's not our world. There's definitely a world out there that's fair and square for that, but that's not ours. So for us, it's really about giving the opportunity and sort of serving a need which is universal to our demographic in many ways and forms. So in a way, when people come and join us in that residential offering, in the beginning they might be 100% active and they don't need any sort of assistance. But as they age, and I guess as we all age, right? I think there's a different set of criteria and needs that arise. And for that, our offering is, let's say, a fully on-demand offering where people can just pick and choose the offerings they need and find most valuable for them.
And then, it could be, there's no limit on the age, right? It could be 80, 90, 100. Are you guys going to provide any sort of nursing services if they need it?
Yes. So we're not a care home. So in many ways, we're more, let's say, more a hospitality driven operator. But we offer and team up with local specialists in care that come and deliver care in your own residence, if you will. So that's, let's say, the care aspect. But I think what's most crucial is that we want to make sure that that person will always be in charge of any decision-making process. So we want to make sure that no matter what, my children will never be needed in terms of deciding what is going to happen with me, right? So I want to make sure that everything is planned ahead, everything is sort of catered for, and it's really, we call it living as a service for a reason, right? Because at a certain age in life, we don't want to be, let's say, stuck up with a burden of, okay, shit, now I'm 95. I need to figure out what the best deal in getting care is. I have no clue, right? So in that way, I think offering that service, and it's obviously it's a bit of a, let's say, a concierge world we are offering, but I think that's very clearly realized in our research. That's exactly what people are looking for.
Nice. And then you guys, so how long have you guys, because I know you're not officially launched yet. You guys are, working on raising, you're going to refurbish a building, you're looking at different cities. Like, how long have you guys already been in the planning process before launch, if you want to timeline it?
Yeah, so I think 3 years ago it's pretty fair to start the planning. Really, let's say, full-time engagement in the team. We have that since last year. Officially incorporated the company last December, and ever since I've gone strong and building the team, building the pipelines, building the connections.
Nice. And then which cities are you guys contemplating putting the first location?
Yeah, so it'll be probably a bit like a head-to-head race, depending which development is going to be quicker. But ideally, we want to start somewhere between 2021 and 2022 in Amsterdam, in Vienna, in Geneva, and we're currently looking at Munich and London.
Oh, those are
So
all such great cities.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think in many ways, what we really try to create is a world and sort of a network of those embassies, right? So where quality of life comes together, where parts of also different demographics come together, but where we definitely make sure that we tap into the giant knowledge and giant experience we sort of obviously foster with our demographic and our embassies. And it's we've chosen that name for very carefully and for a reason, because we want to be the embodiment of quality of life. We want to be the installment of all those amazing people, and make sure that we sort of in a way make that knowledge and that experience we house in our buildings accessible to a younger demographic also, and by that building bridges between demographics. And in order to get to the top of Maslow's pyramid, we need to get into the purpose sector. So in many ways, I think, yes, we're in the hospitality business, but we're really in the bridge making business between different demographics.
Yeah, and then so speaking of that, so it sounds like the community, the one layer of the community and the front facing, food and beverage. So that's obviously going to be intergenerational, all ages welcome. What would you compare it closely to? Like if you were to model like something similar?
So I think sort of the food and beverage offering is always a local team up. So we'll always team up with local restaurateurs and local people. Obviously, making sure that we deliver on the local experience and to the demand what we ultimately have by connecting that place to our network. If you relate it to the, let's say, the community part, that's probably the rather mature version of a Soho house. So probably people who've grown up out of that demographic in a way or form, probably mostly related. You could maybe think about Neue House, which is an amazing concept you all will be aware of. So I would say that that's most fair to be compared to.
Nice. And then what kind of, events or community building things do you guys anticipating doing in the project?
I'd say the majority will be culture driven. So we really want to bring together a great quality of life, and that goes from performing arts, music, exhibitions. We're going to run a artist in residence program. So every facility will offer one spot, one resident to a senior artist that is yet to break through from a commercial perspective. Making sure that we sort of also play into the local narrative in many ways and forms. I think when you talk about how do we try to establish also the community feel outside of our embassy. So one thing we don't want to do is build a gated community. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to live in a gated community. It's horrible. Really, it's horrible. You don't want to be there. Nobody wants to go into a gated community because it's gated, right? So what we want to make sure is that we make sure that Mrs. Smith, who lives next door on the 5th floor, who isn't that well off and is a bit, let's say, not too good on her feet, but has no children in town, and there's nobody to sort of relate to and make sure to help her out. We want to engage with Mrs. Smith, make sure that she's well taken care of. She's somebody always there for her, and by that becomes sort of also, let's say, a third place for the community and for the locals, and really bond with that city we're going to engage in. So we take 2 years before we open a door to let's say arrive in the city, make the right connections, engage with the right people, and build it from there.
And then I'm assuming you guys will have community, leaders within that are living. Are they going to live on site, or how's the team going to work?
Yeah, no, both living. The audio is popping back in and out,
Yeah.
so I hope it's going to work. So no, they'll be living on site. Yeah.
Nice. And then the price point. So I'm sure everybody's wondering that's listening or watching this, what price is this, a little bit, again, a lot of hospitality driven, what's the price range going to be? Is it more on the high end for co-living?
Yeah, so I'd say the membership part not so much, but the living part is definitely, let's say, mostly targeting financially independent people who want to stay with us for long term. But that is mostly related not to our let's say pricing policy, but it comes just simply down to the fact that we're going to hit the cities with the highest quality of life. So we really check the top 25 cities of the world and check those boxes really. And finding real estate in those places is, as we all know, unfortunately expensive. And that money is it's, real estate is simply at the moment not really cheap, and maybe a bit overpriced in some cities. But that said, sort of the living part is definitely more on the premium side. Yeah.
And I mean, especially the cities you're going into, obviously, and some of them are the most expensive, but some are have the highest rate of loneliness. So, which is really interesting, right? They have both those problems. And how many units do you think an average building do you anticipate having? Like, how many residents will you house?
Yeah, so the buildings we currently are all planning sit somewhere between 32, which is the smallest one, and the biggest one is currently 15.8 units, and let's say maybe 1.5 resident per location. That ends up somewhere in the 70 to 80 range of let's say ambassadors we house per location. In general.
Oh, you're calling them ambassadors?
Obviously, I mean, if you live in the embassies, what's your name,
I
right?
love that. Oh, that's amazing.
And I think one thing, and that's probably for us one of it's sort of a byproduct with what we try to do, but it's something we definitely really want to put a lot of emphasis in. I don't know really why that is, but for one weird reason, we came up with the word seniors. We came up with words like, I don't know, elderly. I don't like those kind of words, right? So for us, it's also a little bit about changing the narrative here. So that's why we're not called the embassies of old people, right?
Okay, that's good.
But what we do is really embody quality of life, and for us that is really ageless. So for that matter, we came up with the name ambassadors, and I think when you think about what is a luxury good in later life, I think great quality of life should be the ultimate luxury good in that. And luxury not per se in terms of financial relevance, but more in terms of what is most aspirational, and making sure that we're not you continue with that weird perception of ours that just because you're old shouldn't mean that you should enjoy life any less, right? I mean, why? It never made any sense to me, and I would have loved my grandparents to be able to get into a home where they're still fully part of life, and where we all can still participate and learn from all the knowledge and experience available, and just have a great time together.
I love that. And why do you think it's been, why hasn't that whole industry been disrupted yet, in your personal opinion? The senior care, senior housing, why has it taken so long?
That's a good question, and one we get from investors very frequent. I think one realization is, and that's a sad one to be honest. If we were to do this, what we try to do, let's say for a more commercial market at a much lower price point, it's pretty much impossible without governmental fundings or external funding. So I think price sensitivity is one point, but also I think points of sort of how that topic is being perceived, right? I think what we try to do is put people center stage in everything we think, do, or and act upon, right? I think traditionally those players in that market come from a, let's say, more institutionalized hospital reference maybe, and in that form and shape, it's just a very different play.
That's a good point too. What other questions are investors like asking you the most right now while you guys are building this out?
How big can we go?
Okay, yeah, of course.
So I think, I mean, that answer is pretty easy to tell, right? I mean, just look at the demographics involved and sort of the sheer gigantic, change in how our world's going to look like in a few years, where 1 in 4 people is aged 60 and over. That's simply a very different world compared to the one we have right now, and people have no sort of knowledge about how that will maybe pan out. So that's one question investors have, and are obviously quite happy with that answer. Another one is, could you do this also in sort of maybe a holiday retreat concept? I think potentially, definitely. That's definitely something that's maybe a business model for further down the line. For now, for us, it's all eyes on operations and making sure that we get the right people involved, make the smartest decision on who to team up with. That's probably a very difficult one, as always in life. And then be very thorough and be very precise about our operative model and execute brilliantly. That's what keeps us busy now.
And what are some co-living models, anywhere in the world right now that you look up to that you think are really doing a great job?
Wow, that's a good question. I think there are a number of super interesting ones. I think one, the best concept I ever came across, it's not really co-living, but it's more like community building, but let's say in our world of our demographic. The concept is called Las Vegas, and it's been executed in Tokyo, and it's a model. It's a brilliant concept in many ways. So people, senior people, are being picked up by minivan in the morning, shuttled into a location where they have to do from, I think it's 9 a.m. till 12. They need to do exercises, train their brains with little quizzes. And for every exercise they do, they get points. At noon, everybody has got lunch. And after lunch, they can take the points they earn in the morning to a cashier and get coins and trade them into coins to play poker the rest of the day. So in the morning, they all come together and are active and engage and sort of stimulate their neural pathways. Then they have lunch, some sleep, and then afterwards they play cards and poker with the points they earn in the morning. I think that is a brilliant concept. Another one I really like is it's also a concept in Singapore where they actually took let's say a senior living complex, giant complex, and they've built the best kiosk in the middle of that place. And that kiosk is only serving the best and most exclusive cartoons and sweets. So, and that attracts obviously a super large crowd of young boys from the neighborhood and young kids from the neighborhood coming to visit and engage with the old people. So they have somebody to talk to and engage with. So I think everything that's smart about connecting people in a way, that's definitely something we've got our eyes on and scanning the markets.
I love that. And then, what are your thoughts on like this intergenerational, if you had a community of all ages and broaden the gap, it wasn't just 60 plus, but like, have you guys researched that at all? Have you looked into it?
You mean if there is a gap in community building,
or no, not a gap, or sorry, an age, like you can have college student, you can have ages 18 to 100 in one community.
Yeah. So I think one thing how we go about these things is we know that knowledge and experience isn't really been tapped into, right? So let's say our demographic. And on the other hand, we know that there's like a giant need for funding for young entrepreneurs and startup companies who've got a great idea and are looking for something, somebody to help them up, right? And so our demographic and the people we target are majority, let's say, entrepreneurial driven, have done well for themselves in business or in whatever form, and have that knowledge, right? And we've got on the other end the young crowd. So what we decided is that 10% of all the proceeds we make in our communal and membership offering go into a fund, and that fund is being governed by our ambassadors. And that is actually sort of the bridge making model between young people, young entrepreneurs coming in, our demographic. The money isn't important at all. It's just to create that platform for the two generations to interact. The one offering the other the opportunity to leverage their idea into startup mode, but more importantly that they engage and that our experience can be tapped into a younger entrepreneur's project. And by that we increase both qualities of life for our residents and also for the entrepreneurs coming in and generate create win-win situations and that.
That's awesome. And so, so you guys think, so it's going to be 2021, 22, right? Is when you guys will probably open the first location? Okay. Yeah, which is right. It seems like it's far away, but it's right around the corner. Time goes so fast.
Time runs fast.
Yes. So let's ask that. That's my last question for you is where do you see co-living as a whole, not just for your demographic, but just in general on a global level, like if we fast forward 10 years out?
Wow. I think I think you interviewed already quite interesting people in this podcast here, and I think for what I see it to be, I think none of us has a clue where it really ends up, and I think it's going to be bigger than we all experience it or expect it to be. I think when you just look at the sheer numbers, there's not really an alternative to co-living. Also from, let's say, a pure demographic standpoint, but from a quality of life standpoint, just think about it. I mean, how sad is it that people, I just read a research paper in the UK. There's like 500,000 people have 5 days consecutively in the UK where they don't speak to anybody.
Oof.
Just thinking about that, it's just obviously deeply saddening. But when I look at, let's say, the co-living trend, offering people a way out and an opportunity to sort of enrich both lives, I think that's definitely the way forward. And I love to see more and more concepts popping up. We know that our little target nugget we tackle, let's say the 60 plus demographic, is growing. So we need all hands on deck, and everybody who's got a great idea should come forward and just go for it and execute, because the demand is growing and growing and growing. And we see that across not only our demographic, but also in the student co-living concept world, but also in the mid-30s co-living in cities around the world. So I think it's definitely prosperous in the future.
No, and I love that you said, all hands on deck and everybody, and again, I go to all these conferences where all the biggest leaders in co-living, and these are direct competitors, will be in the same room together working on this problem collectively, because they know it's massive. It's such a massive opportunity. They're never going to be able to build as many units as this needs. And I think it is, the whole, everybody just, the more people can help, the rising tide lifts all boats, right? So it's just been really cool to see that in the co-living, even with the larger operators, helping each other out. Because again, they can't build fast enough these units. So great. Well, really appreciate you coming on the show this week. Thank you so much. Look forward to meeting you in person in Finland in a few weeks.
Thank you. We'll see each other in Helsinki soon.
Yes. Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you want to learn more about co-living, you could check out my book on Amazon, The Co-Living Code. And of course, if you're looking for the perfect software to power your co-living concept, check out Kndrd.io, Kndrd.io. Thanks. And a quick thank you to SPX Agency for all of the graphics, animation, and design on our YouTube channel.